present a short talk about how do Iranian international students experience human dignity within the Canadian immigration system. This topic is part of my PhD thesis in which I studied or explored how do Iranian international students experience human dignity before, during, and after their migration to Canada. So for today, I will address three main questions: why I studied this topic, how do I conduct this research, and what I found. Let's start with the question why I chose Canadian immigration system. As you know, every year, many international students come to Canada to pursue their academic goals. However, while this population of these potential immigrants have significant contribution in the Canadian immigration, in the Canadian economic growth and cultural richness, still they live in a precarious situation, financially, psychologically. International students, and this precarious situation mostly depends on the Canadian immigration policies and institutional regulation. Since 2014, the Canadian policies have undergone significant changes, and these changes cause many challenges for international students concerning becoming permanent residents. These challenges work as a barrier for them to become permanent residents, and also make them marginalized and potentially make Canada a less attractive country to study. So it's important that scholars pay a specific attention to know how international students, or how Canadian immigration policies concerning retention, recruitment, and support influence international students. So this is about the immigration system, and why I chose Iranian international students is that this population are ranked, Iranian students in Canada are ranked second source country in doctoral level and sixth in master level. And since the end of a diplomatic relationship between Canadian government and Iranian government, and the issue of the existence of the issue of Islamophobia in Canada, many Iranian international students faced with challenges, or more challenges than before. So, and there is a few studies that have addressed the experiences and concerns of this population. So as an Iranian international student living in Canada about 10 years, and since I am well familiar with the background of these students and their challenges and experiences, so I decided to choose my participants from this community. Why is the concept of human dignity important, and why I chose this concept for my study? Human dignity is one of the fundamental notions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's also a primary concept in both the Canadian and Iranian constitution. Human dignity is emerging nowadays as an important factor in both the motivation to migrate and the experience of settlement in a new country. This fact has been acknowledged by Iranian international students in Canada as well. So giving voice to international students' experience of human dignity is a key element in considering them as a bearer of rights and equal in value with citizens. Also, it can help Canadian policy makers or Canadian immigration system to see in which situations international students find their human dignity as at risk. Human dignity is a subjective concept, and it has been studied in many different disciplines. However, there is no agreement about its definitions. For the purpose of this study, I decided to, I inspired by some few available empirical studies about students in Iran and Canada. And based on those studies, I create my conceptual framework. And as you see, this framework includes 10 concepts such as equality, freedom, honor, God-given gifts, fulfillment, self-respect, humanity, respect, self-esteem, and human rights. These concepts that you see have been addressed in other studies as a synonym for human dignity when the students were asked to provide their understanding of human dignity. They were asked generally, not in a specific context that I am studying in this research. For my study also, I asked international students to provide their own understanding of this concept of human dignity during their experiences with the Canadian immigration system. So even if some of the students asked my understanding or my definition of this concept, but I wanted to know how they understand and how they experience this concept within the context of Canadian immigration system. Since this concept is compared to the human rights concept, it's more depend on context and culture of the people who are experiencing it. So it's important to know how people interpret it and in which situation they feel that their human dignity is threatened or not respected. This is a qualitative study. I used semi-structured interview to interview 24 international students, 10 men, 10 women, who lived in Canada at least for 2 years and who must have completed their at least their bachelor degree in Iran. And these students also must have entered Canada with a student permit visa, not as a permanent resident. It's interesting to know that about their immigration status, 9 of these students got their permanent residency during the process of their education, or they intend, 15 of them intend to apply for permanent, or I can say 15 of them are still a student who 10 of them intend to apply for permanent residency and 4 of them not sure. And only one international student told me that doesn't have any intention to apply for permanent residency. So as you can see, most of the students wanted to become permanent residents or they got their permanent residence. About the results, I did a thematic analysis and I found 5 overlapping themes that I will address next. The first theme, in the first theme, Iranian international students claim concerning a contradiction between Canadians' needs for immigrants and their complex immigration application procedures. Iranian international students believe that immigration is a win-win situation. So when Canadian immigration system wants to set an immigration criteria, they should consider immigrants' needs as well. So right now, the students believe that the Canadian immigration system, in terms of immigration criteria for selecting migrants, is in favor of Canadian economic interest over humanity. By referring to humanity, international students, Iranian international students, believe that there is no sympathy and their needs have not been considered adequately by the Canadian government. And they have been treated as an object rather than human. So they feel that in the context of Canadian immigration system, in relation to the eligibility criteria for permanent residency, their human dignity has not been respected, and since they think that their expectation of humanity has not been provided or addressed. I have to skip this example. The second thing is about frustration with arbitrary changes to immigration rules during their course of studies as an international student. The most objection of international students was about the Bill 9 that is related to the Quebec's rejection of 18,000 application, and students find this act against their human rights because the immigration of Quebec threaten their personal autonomy and limit the possibility of planning for their future. The students believe that they have made a lot of plans for their future when they applied for through the immigration of Quebec or through the PEC program, but after these changes, they feel frustrated. They have a sense of feeling frustration with the changes, and they think their human dignity has not been respected because their personal autonomy and their possibility of planning for their future has not been respected. Also, about the previous, students also find the Bill 9, that is, if I want to explain, is about Quebec rejection because students didn't have enough skill in French language. So international students believe that this is a type of linguistic discrimination, a type of or a form of discussion that has been it's not based on the Charter of Human Rights and Freedom. Again, several times international students complain about the lack of clarity for processing time and the extent of time that this processing time it takes much more than their expectation, and they believe in this situation that they cannot plan for their future, for their life. So it puts them in a precarious status or situation financially and psychologically. The students also believe that it has some negative influences for Canadian government as well, because when students cannot plan for their future or feel their basic human rights have not been respected, they might not decide to stay in Canada permanently. So again, students, by relating their personal autonomy and the human rights to human dignity, think that the human dignity has not been respected and threatened by the immigration policy. The next thing is about discrimination based on nationality. Many Iranian international students strongly believe that there is a discrimination based on nationality in the Canadian immigration system. They think that specifically some nationalities like Iranian people, Iranian application, they are experiencing longer processing time, and the length of security check is much longer, and the way immigrant officials treat Iranian cases is much more tough than other nationalities. For example, when they compare their situation with immigrants or international students who came from Europe countries or American, they believe that there is a huge difference concerning these three items, and we found it against their humanity because there is no equality of treatment between applications. The last thing is about International Student Agency in relation to the Canadian immigration system. And Iranian international students try to exercise their human dignity through different ways, such as protesting, using social media, or asking support from MP, Human Rights Office, and lawyers. And while in all situations they couldn't exercise their goals, still they feel they have a good feeling and they are satisfied because of the opportunity, the availability of opportunity to speak out and air disagreement and ask for support from, for example, MPs or human rights officers. So they think they consider this means or opportunity as a sign of respecting the human dignity of immigrants. And but still they believe that because they don't receive adequate or sufficient response from the immigration immigration system or the immigration offices, it's the amount of the support that they receive is not sufficient. If I want to summarize my data, my analysis about data, I can say that while international students acknowledge that that all Canadian institutions they are not the same, and while in the Canadian immigration system, their human dignity has not been respected, it doesn't mean that in other Canadian systems must be the same situation. And what specifically concerning the Canadian immigration system, Iranian international students think that their human dignity has not been respected in these five, according to what I explained about these five concepts that are that these five concepts are part of my conceptual framework, that this study or these five themes provide an empirical support for them. So again, students believe that because they have not been treated equally by the immigration officials and the policies, so the human dignity has been treated, or because they have been considered as an objects rather than human, or there were not enough sympathy or kindness regarding their cases or their needs. So again, human dignity has not been respected. Their individual autonomy, several times the students claim that there is no respect for their individual autonomy, and because of this they cannot plan for their future, and it strongly influence their whole life, because the Canadian policies can change at any time, and so they cannot plan for their future. And they think that this is a basic human rights, as they name it, or basic needs that a person should have to be able to make plan for the future. But unfortunately, they believe that these concepts or notions have not been adequately addressed or respond or covered in the Canadian immigration system. The concept, this concept that I talked about recently, all of them show a relational quality of the human dignity rather than individual quality. It means that Iranian international students, concerning their experience with the Canadian immigration system, need their needs or their rights be recognized or I can say their human dignity, be recognized and respected by the immigration system. And because if I want to compare these 5 concepts with other concepts of my human dignity framework, we can see that some of them, like self-respect or self-esteem, are more individual, have individual quality. But concerning the, for example, equality or human rights, it seems that they need to be respected or recognized. The human dignity must be recognized and respected by system. Sorry, at the end, I think that...
If I could just say just half a minute left, please.
Okay. While international students condemn Canadian immigration system or Canadian immigration policies in terms of their human dignity, still there are a lot of students who have applied for permanent residency or they intend to apply for it. So it can be a question for further research why this happened, what factors influence on their decision to stay in Canada, why they think that their human dignity has not been respected adequately by the immigration system. And the next question can be for the further studies. How do international students from all different nationalities experience and understand human dignity within the Canadian immigration system? But by this research, we can compare the results of my study with other studies and see how different nationalities interpret human dignity and how they understand a human dignity in the context of immigration system. And the next question is, what factor affect international students' experiences and understanding of their human dignity? We can study that which elements influence on their study and their understanding.
I'm sorry, the time is up now, so I think we should move on to questions. And I'm sorry for